There was a time I bled for over a month, every day for 30 days, non-stop. So I had to visit the physician and I was given a particular drug that would stop the bleeding. And after that, it reoccurred again. They had already tested me for fibroid because of the overflow that I usually have during my monthly period. Clotted blood. Painful, yeah, and then clotted. Heavy flow. Before I now started having that monthly flow for 30 days, if they give me the medicine, it will stop. And then the next period, it will continue flowing until I visit the doctor.
Welcome back to Africa Science Focus, the weekly science and development show from SciDevNet. I'm Ogechi Kanyawo. That was Didi, a Nigerian woman who prefers to speak anonymously. She was talking about her experience with uterine fibroids, the topic of this episode of our Science Explained series. In this episode, we looked at the topic of uterine fibroids, a condition affecting many women. Uterine fibroids are non-cancerous tumors composed of smooth muscle cells, fibroblasts, and other materials that develop in or on the wall of the uterus, primarily in women of childbearing age. While some women with fibroids show no symptoms, others experience significant challenges such as heavy and painful menstruation, abdominal and back pain, and complications affecting pregnancy and fertility. Didi shares her personal journey of living with fibroids, shedding light on the impact it had on her daily life with our reporter, Busola Ajibola.
In my late 40s, I just had fever and I went to the hospital. And after all tests done, we had a conversation with the doctor, and the doctor was like, Black people are very prone to fibroid, that they want me to go for a scan and check whether I have fibroid. I finally took the scan paper, but I never went for the fibroid test until in 2021, when I was experiencing heavy bleeding. I visited the doctor and I was asked to go for scan. That was when I was diagnosed with fibroid. You cannot use your normal pad like others. You need to double your sanitary pad. And it's not the normal regular pad. It has to be pad meant for heavy flow. The heavy bleeding, clotted blood coming out, and the heavy flow. No, it wasn't pleasant, and it's quite consuming financially. On 2 occasions, I soiled car traveling, and I had to soil the car because I was flowing. Despite the fact that I used heavy sanitary. So it was embarrassing, really embarrassing. It was at that point I told myself it was time for me to take it up.
Maureen Umemmuo-Umeakuewulu, a consultant obstetrician and gynaecologist at the National Hospital Abuja, Nigeria, and head of the Gynae Oncology Unit, talked to our reporter Busola about the effects of fibroids.
It's actually a benign tumor of the smooth muscle of the uterus. So it's a tumor arising on the muscular part of the uterus. You know, in the uterus, we have the endometrial part and we have the muscular part. So the uterine fibroid is a tumor from the smooth muscle of the uterus. It is benign, that is, it is not cancerous. So it is a benign tumor, and it can be located in different areas of the uterus. Now, the symptom is not uniform. It depends on the location of the fibroid, whether the fibroid is located inside the uterine cavity. That is, if it's located inside the uterine cavity, we call that one submucous fibroid. Now, if it is located inside the muscular part of the uterus, we call that one the subserous, if it's at the outside. Then if it's inside, it's the mucosal type. So the type of uterine fibroid depends on the location of that fibroid.
Today, we want us to explore around the issue of fibroid and how it affects women in Sub-Saharan Africa. And a good place for us to start that conversation is to have you educate us about what are the symptoms.
So the symptoms depends also on the location. So you can have submucous inside the uterus. You can have intramural inside the muzzle. And you can have serosal at the top of, that is like a membrane covering the uterus. Then you can also have the one we call peduncle. So it's just using a small attachment. You have a small attachment to the uterus and it grows out. So we call that pedunculated. Yes. We also have the one we call parasitic. The parasitic can start from pedunculated. Because of the small, tiny attachment to the uterus, it can detach from the uterus and migrate to other portion of the abdomen. So you can even see it outside the uterine cavity because the attachment has been cut off from the uterus and it will move to other locations. That's the one we can call it parasitic because it may not necessarily be in the uterus. But basically, when you want to talk of uterine fibroid, you talk of the submucous, and you talk of the intramural, you talk of the serosal, and you talk of pedunculated. Now, what is very important to know all these things is that the symptom depends on the location. If it's submucous, then it leads to heavy bleeding, what we call in medicine menorrhagia. Now, people having submucous fibroid will present to you in the clinic complaining of heavy bleeding, complaining of dizziness during menses, or even that they bled so much that they fainted, or passage of clot. It's most likely they have what we call submucous fibroid. Now, also, the people with intramural can also present with heavy bleeding because when you have so many fibroid nodules, it triggers them to heavy bleeding. It affects their clotting factors. They don't contract very well. So people with intramural may likely present with heavy menstrues. That is what we call menorrhagia. Now, the intramural, because of multiple numbers in intramural, the uterus tends to grow bigger. It can give a back pressure to either the bladder or the kidneys. So you see some of them, especially the one presenting with heavy uterine mass, they will have what we call back pressure to the kidneys, and it can even affect their kidney functions. So you see somebody with uterine fibroid coming down with kidney problems, and you'll be wondering, because of the unique location of the uterus, and when it's enlarged, it blocks the smooth flow of the urine coming from the kidney to the bladder. And when there is obstruction of that flow, the kidney tends to, blow up, or you start having what we call hydronephrosis. That is, it starts getting larger because the water entry, that the urine entering into the uterus, is not coming down. It tends to accumulate, the urine entering the kidneys, they're not coming down. So it tends to accumulate inside the kidneys and they present with what we call hydronephrosis. So that's so many things. And when a woman is bleeding heavily, is not controlled, they tend to come down with what we call anemia. And if anemia is not treated, it can affect the heart, leading to anemic heart failure.
Uterine fibroids are common. According to one study titled Uterine Fibroids, Causes, Impacts, Treatments, and Lens to the African Perspective, and published in the journal Frontiers in Pharmacology, there is an up to 80% prevalence of uterine fibroids amongst Black women. The study highlights a concerning trend. Despite Sub-Saharan Africa having the largest population of Black women and facing significant financial burdens from fibroid treatments, the majority of uterine fibroid studies exclude women from this region. But why is uterine fibroids so pervasive in Sub-Saharan Africa? We're turning back to Dr. Umemmuo-Umeakuewulu to provide insights.
Fibroid, as you know, is common in Black women. When you mention fibroid, the symptoms, the management, you talk of Black women. There is genetic predisposition. Black people are predisposed to fibroid development. Black people are predisposed. In fact, in Black, we have 2 to 3-fold increase in terms of fibroid, unlike the white. So it is genetical, and once something is genetical, you cannot actually explain it. Because of, if you want to explain it, we move into genetic chromosomal alteration, which is not needed. So it's genetic. So Black women are predisposed to fibroid. Now, another thing is age.
Sure.
The older a woman, the probability of that woman developing fibroid. That's why most women tend to present with fibroid when they're above 40 years. So at 40, when you scan if you scan 100 women, up to 70, they present with fibroid. Those some with asymptomatic. So age is another factor. And as I told you, familial. So familial, as I explained to you previously, another thing is what we call nulliparity. That is when women are not giving birth. This period of career time, some tend to shift marriage age, kind of giving birth, and it predisposes them to fibroid development. Now, also, when it has lasted a long time, a woman gave birth. Let's say you had your last baby before 30 or at 30. So once it's more than 5 years or longer, the womb is resting. And as I told you, once the womb is resting, the womb must be doing something. So fibroid may likely start its work. So you have fibroid development at that time.
Stella, another woman affected by fibroid, shared her story with Busola, highlighting the varied experiences individuals have with this condition.
I just want to say that fibroids, no matter how common they are very disruptive. We almost take over your entire life. They destabilize you during your monthly periods. It's just a whole lot that you're dealing with emotionally, physically, and you get so weak. So for me, because I'm bleeding heavily and now anemic, it means that even when I'm not on my period, I'm constantly tired and dizzy. That's not a way that you want to live your life, because, coming from a point where you are typically a productive person and now you walk 1 kilometer and you're already tired because of the anemia. Also, it does feel like a lot of work having to change and clean every time because you're dealing with heavy bleeding. I'm often conscious when I'm on my periods because I don't want to go out. I just want to sit indoors. So you see how disruptive it is. You just stay in one place trying to make sure that you're not soiling, you're not steaming anywhere, and you're changing constantly. It's quite disruptive. The periods, the first 3 days of my periods are hell. That's how I will describe. First of all, the fact that the days before the period, I can already tell that something is going on with me emotionally. My hormones are everywhere. I'm constantly trying to regulate myself because I can feel like everything is going on at the same time. That's how it feels before my periods. And when they come so heavily in clots. There's pressure in my pelvic area, and then you can see that the periods are longer and more frequent. So they just basically disrupt my life once I'm on my period. And I would say not even just once I'm on my period. I would say generally, because as I've said, if you lose that much blood, you're literally losing blood, so you're going to be anemic. And the one symptom of anemia there's most pronounced the weakness, that dizziness, and that's that you face, that you have to deal with and you have to manage constantly.
So talking about treatments, do you want to talk about perhaps some therapies that you've had to explore to manage the fibroid?
So first of all, the first thing that they gave me some blood supplements. I can't remember what they're called now because I was ready to do lots of blood and then become anemic. And so they wanted me to basically recover from that. Also, they suggested some contraceptives to at least reduce the bleeding, because as I said, and I didn't mention bleeding, so they wanted that to go down. But ultimately, they advised to take fibroids out, and they advised that if they asked my age, if I was done with childbearing, and then I could just do myomectomy. It would be a removal of those the fibroids, and also I think it's called a hysterectomy, which will also be a removal of my uterus, which will be then able to repeat children again, which is fine. I mean, for me, that's fine. That's a choice, and then that's enough that I'm willing to take, because, well, my health is really important.
For some women like Didi, the severity of symptoms may necessitate the removal of fibroids through medical intervention.
After the trip I had, and I saw it myself, and I didn't find it funny, I just told myself that I have to take this thing out, otherwise I may be facing more embarrassing situations like this, which I don't want. I wasn't scared, I wasn't afraid. I just told myself I think it was time for me to take it out. And I just went for it. For me, it was fine. It was really fine. I was only agitated at the point I was about going into the theater. I was a little anxious, but I summoned courage and I went. And the recovery was beautiful and quick. I was in the hospital for less than a week. Because by the third day, I was already climbing the staircase, and the doctor was like, that means you're healing fine. And if you're healing fine, that means it's time for you to go home. And I said, yes, I think I'm strong enough to go home. So I was in the hospital for like 4 or 5 days, and I was back home, then going for routine check once 2 weeks. And that was just like,
many women in Sub-Saharan Africa, for various reasons, including a misunderstanding of fibroids, fail to seek treatment. And this can lead to severe consequences. Dr. Umemmuo-Umeakuewulu debunked fibroid myths and encouraged proactive healthcare seeking.
You know that prevalence of fibroid is so high, especially among Black women. So for a normal, in fact, research has shown that if you do ultrasound for normal women, let's say at the age of 35, you get fibroid. Even up to 25 to 50% of them will be having fibroid unknowingly. And when you go above 70, you get a higher number. Even you can get as high as 70% of women having fibroid. And
Wow.
it doesn't disturb them. We call those one asymptomatic fibroid. That's why when they do scan and they come to the clinic and we notice that it's not disturbing you, we tell some of them to just go home. Because it's so common in the Black race. Now, as a woman, you now worry about fibroid when it is non-symptomatic. Now, as I mentioned, the effects of fibroid. 1, the bleeding, that is menorrhagia. It can lead to anemia, and if not treated, it can even lead to anemic heart failure. 2, when you have back pressure to the kidneys, it can affect both kidneys, leading to hydronephrosis, and if not managed, and even knock off the kidneys. 3, it can predispose the woman to miscarriage. The woman tends to present with recurrent miscarriages. Then there's another interesting area I would like to talk about, that is fibroid with infertility. We need to understand that fibroid don't always cause infertility, or fibroids don't always cause infertility. So fibroid is not a known proven cause of infertility. Because once they notice they have fibroid and they are not able to conceive, they will say it's because of the fibroid. No. Now, fibroid can lead to infertility on 2 or 3 conditions. 1, if it's a mucous fibroid, it tends to stay where the baby will attach. The submucous fibroid, it stays where baby normally implants. Implantation is attachment of the baby to the uterus. You know, after fertilization occurs in the fallopian tubes. You know that? Yes. The baby moves to the uterine cavity within 2-3 days to the uterine cavity, and the baby attaches to the fundal region of that uterus. And that's where the submucous fibroid tends to stay. So it affects that attachment. That's why for some women having submucous fibroid, it can affect their fertility.
Okay, so what then are the treatment options for fibroid?
There are many treatment options for fibroid depending on the presentations. It's not bothering you, you observe. Now, apart from that, there are different options of treatment. We have surgical options. We have medical options. We have radiological options. Maybe we'll start with surgical.
Yes, please.
Then for surgical options, if it's a woman within her reproductive age group, that is a woman desirous of still having more children, you do what we call myomectomy. So you remove the fibroid nodules. And you know, for that removal of the fibroid nodules, you can do it in different ways. 1, you can open the abdomen and remove the fibroid nodules. That is what we call abdominal myomectomy. You can also do laparoscopic one, whereby tubes are inserted into the woman's abdomen and the nodules enucleated. That is when we call enucleation is removing the nodules laparoscopically. Also, you can do what we call hysteroscopic myomectomy, especially if the fibroid is the submucous one. Remember the submucous one inside the uterine cavity.
Yes.
So you pass a hysteroscope. That one, you do it through the vagina and remove the fibroid. We call that one hysteroscopic myomectomy. So there are various options you can use. Now, there is also the one we call, though not commonly done here, maybe I should put it under radiologically, the embolization. But let me go to the medical aspect. There are situations you can actually use drugs, manage fibroid. But it's better when the woman is reaching her menopause. Because no drug will permanently treat uterine fibroid. It can only relieve the symptoms temporarily and it bounces back. Now, we use it perimenopausal period, that is around menopause, because fibroid is dependent on hormones. That's why you see fibroid around women of reproductive age. Now, if you do medical treatment in a woman that is approaching menopause, the medical treatment pushes her to menopause. And once you have a state of hypoestrogen, that is low hormone level or menopause, fibroid tend to shrink. So it will. So we can use drugs like gonadotropin releasing hormone analog, goserelin. You may or may not be familiar with it, but mostly the drugs we use are mostly hormonal.
Okay.
Even for some women bleeding so heavy, sometimes you can even use oral contraceptive to reduce the heaviness of the bleeding. So the hormonal treatment you are giving, I hope you know that there is a type of IUCD you can also use to treat heavy bleeding. We
I don't know.
levonorgestrel intrauterine device. So when you put it as IUCD, instead of the copper IUCD,
Yeah.
put levonorgestrel type, so it reduces the bleeding.
Can you talk about the success rate and maybe also if you have an understanding of why women would not readily seek the option of going to the hospital? Do you also know why does that happen?
My dear Busola, we have so many issues and we see so many complications among women because of this. I think we need to educate our women. We need to create more awareness. I think in Africans, we have this aversion for surgery. We don't like surgery. So a woman can do any other thing just for her not to enter theater. And you also know in Africa, we have this new, a serious religious issues. It's unfortunate that some pastors are turning to doctors. So they give them all manners of prophecies and a lot of, I don't even know where to start. And the women tend to believe them more than doctors. And not only that, our women tend to take a lot of traditional tests. And that will even complicate the whole situation when finally she presents for surgery. They tend to go to a lot of traditional people. I'll give you an example. We have a very high-class woman that doesn't want surgery. I think they should be maybe more than 10 years now. I can't remember precisely. I met a traditional person that the woman used bicycle spook, that she will use it to remove the fibroid. And she paid the woman, and after the whole thing, she got heavily infected, presented the hospital. The infection was so overwhelming, and she left. That was how she ended her story. She died. So I think we need to create so many awareness to women. One, cure of fibroid, eminent cure of fibroid is surgical. Traditional medicine, prayer houses, name them, cannot cure fibroid. And we have to be emphatic about that. We need to drive it straight home to our women. Two, we also have to advise them to always come to doctors and seek advice. Because some of them will do all manners of things. By the time they will present with complications. Now, there's also this issue of once I'm looking for a baby and I have fibroid, it's because of fibroid. And the woman will start moving from one prayer house to another. You may have fibroid and it's still not the cause of your infertility. So the women need to know that.
That's all from us at Science Explained today. If you want to find out more, head to the SciDevNet website, and that's www.scidev.net. Today's show was produced by Alice Hurst, with editing by Ogechi Kianyawo and Titilope Fadare, and hosting by me, Ogechi Kianyawo. Today's reporter was Busola Ajibola. Until next time, goodbye. Africa Science Focus is produced by SciDevNet and distributed in association with your local radio station.